All right, so it's important to understand the different muscles of the body, especially if you care for weightlifting, for a few reasons. One, if you're doing an exercise, you want to make sure that you're actually doing the exercise properly and that you're working out what you're intending to and that you're not just wasting your time. Two, you don't want to have an imbalanced body. You don't want to have a bigger upper body and have skinny legs. But it is true that it's hard to gain muscle. It requires a lot of consistent effort and a good diet. So it's not like you're just going to blow up overnight and you have to worry about being completely disproportional. But it is something to be aware of. Being aware of and knowledgeable of how to have kind of a complete, healthy, and balanced body. And three goes back to injuries again. There is always some weakest link of your body for a given exercise. There's always something that needs more work, and hopefully it's not these kind of secondary muscles that are playing a role, because if it is completely underprepared for the weight that you're trying to do, that's when you can kind of hurt yourself. So as an example, say like shoulder press. When you're doing shoulder press, it's mostly working the front head of the shoulder and the side head of the shoulder, and depending on how you move, especially if you start to have kind of bad form, the rear head of the shoulder will start to be used. And if you've never worked the rear head, this is a type of a time where it's just not prepared for, and you can hurt yourself. Same thing with like bench press, and if your back doesn't play too strong of a role in bench press, but if you have a completely underdeveloped back and you start really struggling with the weights, your back probably can't handle it and you might hurt yourself. So those are some of the main reasons to know about the muscles of the body, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate the muscles. I'm not in too great of shape right now. I've kind of been taking a week off every once in a while for traveling in school, but anyway, so you have the chest, and there's a lower part of the chest, a mid part of your chest, and there's an upper part of your chest. And regardless of the chest exercise that you do, you can't completely isolate one part of the chest versus the other, but you can do exercises that target one area more than the other. I'll mention some good exercises for each of these muscles, but keep in mind that this is not a comprehensive list. It's not everything. It's just good exercises that are effective for most people, and also ones that I find fun. And for any of the exercises that I mentioned, it's always good practice to think about what you're actually working out and to try to focus on that. There is a muscle and mind connection, and you can get more out of the exercise by thinking about this, not just because I'm imagining the muscle, but it's because it helps you focus on what you're trying to do, and it prevents you from having sloppy form as much. Like an example is bicep curls. So most people know bicep curls, you're supposed to curl the weight up, right? It's simple. It doesn't get much more simple than that. But that's a good example is you're supposed to keep your elbow as straight as you possibly can. That way you're not rocking it. When you rock it, you would be using your shoulders more, you'd be using your back to get up the weight. And sure, that's still a workout, you're still doing it, but it's not the intended goal. If you really just do a lighter weight and focus on making it completely dependent on the bicep doing the motion, well, that's what the goal is. So it's good to keep these things in mind for all of the exercises. So yeah, that's the chest. A great exercise for it is the traditional bench press. You can do the incline bench press to target more of the upper part. You can do a decline bench press to target more of the lower part. Also, cable flies are great. And you can use dumbbells too, but if you're not used to it, it's easier just to use the machine for the cable flies. You have the shoulders, so I'm not sure if it's still pronounced enough, but there are three heads to the shoulder. There's the front head, the side head, and the rear head, also called the anterior head, the lateral head, and the posterior head. You can look these up online to see like what are the most effective workouts per head. But in general, doing things like shoulder press, especially if you sit down, you can support your back so that your back isn't playing too much of a role in it. But yeah, shoulder press, Arnold press, which is great. You're rotating as you go up, really works all three of the heads. Arnold Schwarzenegger invented that one. There's lateral raises, so with dumbbells you go straight out like this, or lateral raises with dumbbells completely out like that. Front raises with the dumbbells. Yeah, so those are some of my favorites for shoulders. For triceps, tri meaning three, so there are three heads to the triceps. You have the front head, the middle, and the rear again. They're also called the lateral head, the medial head, and the long head. So again, you can look up exercise if you really care to target one more than the other, but in general, regardless of the exercise, just like chest, just like shoulder, anytime you do a tricep exercise, all three heads will play some role in it, but you can target kind of more of one than the other. And in general, great tricep. I love doing triceps. Some exercises include doing tricep kickbacks. So you have a dumbbell, you're leaning across a bench, and you go straight out. Also doing rope pull down. So you're standing up. There's a rope. It's like tied with the machine. And you go straight down with it. Doing skull crushers. The name sounds horrible, but you're lying on your back. You have an easy curl bar, and you lower the weights right above your head, and then you extend it straight up towards the ceiling while keeping your elbow stationary. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, tricep extensions with dumbbells, going straight up, keeping your elbow straight. So those are some of my favorite tricep exercises, and all of these together, the chest, the shoulders, the triceps, they're all kind of they're all related, and they all work together, and that it's hard to work the chest without the shoulder and triceps playing some role in it. They're the secondary muscles, and vice versa. If you're working your shoulders, it's pretty impossible to have your triceps and chest to have to play no role in it at all. But that isn't to say that you can't have a very effective chest workout, and that you're not tiring out your shoulders and your triceps too much. So the next group I mentioned is the back. So the back is a very large muscle in everybody. It's the whole surface, and up top you have your traps, and shrugs are the main exercise for it. You have dumbbells by your side. You go straight up, and really focus on burning this area right here. Don't do any of the circle stuff. It doesn't do you any good. As you go down towards the upper and the middle part of the back, pull-ups, good old traditional pull-ups are great for that. Pull-ups are also great for the V shape to really bring out your lats, which are the things on the side. For the upper, and really good for your middle too, doing seated rows. So as you're sitting down on a bench, you can either have the hand grips, or you can have a bar, and you pull straight back while trying to keep your back pretty stationary. You don't want to be doing a huge jerking motion. Let's see, also T-bar rows, if you care to look it up, T as in the letter, then bar rows. So you're kind of doing kind of like a half squat type motion. You have a bar with weights on it, and you're pulling completely up. Notice that the recurring theme here with a lot of the back exercises is that you're pulling. That's also why swimmers, you'll notice they have an amazing V-shaped body, is because that's what they do all the time. As they're swimming, they're kind of doing this pulling motion, and that works on the V. Okay, so next is, I'll say also for the lower back, straight leg deadlifts are very good for it. And anytime you do a heavy compound exercise for the legs, your lower back will play a role. So like squats, deadlifts, you'll definitely feel it in your back. Also the back raises, I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but as you just lean over, some gyms have these. There are these pads, and it's it's almost like the opposite of a sit-up. You can have weights as you hold it and you go up. I think those are back extensions. So then you have the biceps. They're actually, bi meaning two, they're actually two heads to the bicep. I think most people, when they say like, oh, flex, people think of this side of it, but there's another one, and it's pretty basic for biceps. Curls, will go a long ways, and just variants of it. Doing preacher curls, so there's a pad and you're leaning over, and it really helps keep your elbow stationary so that all the work is really hitting the bicep. You can kind of pronate your wrist more to try to bring out more of the inner head of the bicep. And then you have your forearms too, which a lot of people neglect because the forearms, you know, you use all the time, so in some ways they're getting worked out no matter what you do. Rock climbers have very strong forearms because it's all about gripping. Anytime your hands are under a lot of tension, the forearms are getting worked. So you'll see when you do shrugs, you're developing your forearm strength. Also when you do heavy deadlifts, so you know, it's just like it's a bar and when you're going straight up, that exercise is not for the forearms, for the legs and the lower back and your quads and all these things that I'll get into. But I'm just saying this is an example of how anytime you're carrying a heavy weight, your forearms are getting worked. And just like how the chest, shoulders, and triceps all kind of work together, same thing with the back and the biceps. It's hard to do a back movement without the biceps playing a role. So most people don't really know. I mean, you know, somebody who doesn't go to the gym, it can be a little confusing. Like, what is a pull-up actually working out? You know, in some ways it could kind of feel like a full body workout, but done properly, pull-up is really supposed to mainly work your back, but biceps being the secondary thing. You will feel a burn in your biceps. So, I guess next I'll go to legs. For your legs, you have your quads in the front, you have the hamstrings in the back, along with your glutes, your butt, and also your calves down here. So for your quads, a great exercise is the squats. You could read a whole bunch on proper technique for the squats, but just to give you kind of a picture of what it looks like, it's a barbell with weights on the side, and it's resting on your back, and you're going straight down and straight up. Also, you have deadlift, so it's also a barbell. It's on the ground. It's named deadlift because the weights are coming from a dead stop, and you're lifting it. You grip and you go straight up, and then back down with it. Power lifters, as I mentioned in the past, they're mainly concerned about 3 exercises: the bench press, squats, and deadlifts. So the last 2 I just showed. Also, you can do lunges, either with a barbell on your back, and you're kind of doing this one leg at a time, kind of kneeling movement, or you can also do the same thing but with dumbbells on your side, and that really works the hamstrings and the glutes. You can do all sorts of leg machines. You can't really go wrong. Hip abductors and adductors are amazing. Those are the machines that when you sit down, your knees are bent and you're moving pads either inwards or outwards, and that's kind of it works smaller muscles, which are very helpful for these bigger multi-joint exercises. You also can do leg extensions. You're sitting down, your legs are going straight out, or you can do leg curls, which works your hamstrings. So the extensions mainly work your quads, by the way. And for your calves, just doing calf raises. There are many different machines for it, from standing ones, or sitting down ones, but basically everything's staying the same. Nothing is moving, like the angle of your knee is staying the same, and all the weight is just from you rotating the angle of your ankles. So all the work is being done with your calves. So that's all I'll say for legs, and also I kind of neglected the abs. The abs have an upper, kind of a middle, and a lower section also. Depending on the ab exercise that you do, you can target one area more than another, and this is also an example of how muscles always have a secondary group of muscles that are playing a role. So with your abs, if you've never worked your back, you'll find that your back is your limiting factor that allows you to not do as many sit-ups or whatever abs exercises that you're doing. That's a rare example. And most the converse would be more likely if you always work your back, you never really do your abs, and it's all part of your core. So just keep in mind that this is how the weakest link can play a role. So these are all the, let me angle the camera up again. These are all of the main muscles of the body, but don't feel obligated or overwhelmed by the different options and as if you have to work every single thing and that you have to be so regimented. The key is to do something that you like, to get exercise and to find something that you enjoy, and to hopefully be able to have a comprehensive enough set of things that you enjoy that you're working the full body. The key thing is just consistency, but if you do care to weightlift and to really work a lot of these different muscles and a lot of different exercises, it can be a question of, well, what's the frequency that you should do these things? What muscles should you pair together when you work? How much rest time should you have both in between sets and like throughout the week? And it all depends on if you want to, what your goals are. If you want to be more of an athlete, or if you want to power lift more, or if you want to do more just traditional weightlifting and kind of work everything. So now I'll go over examples of kind of what are good guidelines and practices for the frequency and intensity of these things.